20,000 soldiers stand motionless. They watch as the consul on the adjacent hill lays the first stone for the foundation of the camp's trench. Calmly, without haste, like a man with time to spare. Pyrrhus has no time. By the end of the summer of 275 BC, the King of Epirus marches into the Calor River Valley with an army that is no longer the force that crossed the Adriatic 6 years ago. Back then, 25,000 infantrymen, 3,000 cavalry, and 20 war elephants landed in Tarentum to the enthusiastic cheers of the Greeks of southern Italy. Alexander the Great's undefeated kinsman had come to save them from Rome. They threw flowers beneath his horse's hooves. Today, those same people bar their gates as he approaches. The army Pyrrhus leads along the banks of the Calor has survived Sicily, survived Carthage, and survived 2 grueling campaigns against Rome. It defeated the Romans at Heraclea. It defeated them at Asculum, and yet, with each victory, it withered like a candle burning at both ends. Veterans bear the scars of 3 wars, their sandals worn thin on the stones of 3 peninsulas. Pyrrhus requests recruits from Tarentum. They send him slaves and old men. But that is not the strangest thing. The strange thing is this. Consul Manius Curius Dentatus, whom Pyrrhus seeks for a decisive battle, is neither retreating nor attacking. He is building. He chooses a steep hill in a river bend, erects a palisade, and digs a ditch. Several thousand men are working, in unison, without panic, as if they were facing not a war, but a construction season. This is not cowardice. It is a trap. Manius Curius is not a commander from the old elite, enamored of heroic death. He rose from the plebs. The Senate knew whom they were appointing. Plutarch preserved the image of this man in a few strokes. The consul, to whom the Samnites offered a bribe, replied that he preferred to command rich men rather than be rich himself. A man of such convictions would not throw his legions into a frontal assault for the sake of personal glory. Curius lets time work for him. Every day that Pyrrhus lingers at the foot of the hills is a day when new legionaries are being registered in Rome. A day when supply carts, laden with grain, crawl south along the Via Appia. A day when the allied cities of Latium muster their next cohorts. Pyrrhus understands the mechanics of this waiting, and that is precisely why he cannot wait. The Greek polis of Magna Graecia, for whom he first came to Italy, Croton, Locri, Rhegium, are watching the events unfold with the calculated pragmatism of merchants. They called for him when Rome was a distant threat. Now Rome stands on the neighboring hill. The choice has become simple. Bet on a king who wins battles but loses campaigns, or make a deal with the Republic, which knows how to wait and never forgives. Several cities are already negotiating with Rome in secret from Pyrrhus. Not openly. For now, there are only rumors, intercepted messengers, and supply trains arriving too slowly. But the king feels the ground shifting beneath his feet. He orders his army to prepare for an immediate assault on the Roman positions. His officers exchange glances. Attacking a fortified camp on a hill is not a battle in an open field where the phalanx is invincible. This is a different kind of war. One the Macedonian machine is not equipped to fight. Long sarissas are useless on a slope where a steady formation cannot be maintained. Elephants lose control on a steep incline under a hail of javelins. 3 years of the Sicilian campaign and continuous marches through southern Italy have eroded the most vital element of the army, without which no war machine functions: the certainty that victory lies ahead. Ahead lies Beneventum. Ahead lies the final battle. And while Manius Curius lays another stone for the camp wall on the hill above the Calori Valley, 3,000 stadia away, in the glittering palaces of Hellenistic monarchs, no one answers Pyrrhus's letters. 3,000 stadia from the Calori Valley, in Antioch, Pella, and Alexandria, Pyrrhus's messengers wait for an audience for weeks. They are not received. This is not an accident or forgetfulness on the part of the royal secretaries. Antigonus Gonatas, ruler of Macedon, received Pyrrhus's letter in the spring. He read it. He set it aside. He ordered wine. Antigonus has his own problems. Gallic tribes press from the north, Thracian chieftains demand gold, and the Macedonian throne is a prize he holds by force, not by law. Pyrrhus asks for reinforcements. Antigonus sends a polite refusal, worded so that it might be read as consent. The same picture unfolds in the east. Antiochus I, son of Seleucus and heir to half of Alexander's empire, is preoccupied with war against Ptolemy of Egypt. This is the First Syrian War, and none of the participants can stop, because to stop is to lose. To Antiochus, Pyrrhus is a distant relative fighting barbarians on the edge of the Oikumena. His victories at Heraclea and Asculum evoked admiration in the courts of the East. Admiration, but not soldiers. As Plutarch wrote, after the Battle of Asculum, one of the courtiers congratulated Pyrrhus. The king replied, "One more such victory, and I shall return to Epirus alone." That was 3 years ago. Then it seemed like a bitter jest. Now it sounds like a prophecy. Pyrrhus sent embassies more than once. By 276 BC, he was sending letters with increasing frequency, and each subsequent message contained less diplomacy and more bluntness. He explained, "Rome is not just an enemy of Tarentum. Rome is a threat to every Hellenistic king. Today the Republic is crushing the Greeks of Italy. Tomorrow it will cross the sea. The logic of conquest knows no end." The Hellenistic monarchs read these letters. They agreed with the logic, and they did nothing. Because helping Pyrrhus meant strengthening Pyrrhus, and a strong Pyrrhus was more dangerous than a strong Rome. Rome was far away. Pyrrhus was right there, across the Adriatic. While embassies stalled in the reception rooms of eastern palaces, Pyrrhus turned to those closer at hand. Carthage controlled the western Mediterranean and traded with Rome, but the formal treaty between them did not preclude secret negotiations. Pyrrhus had been probing Carthage since his time in Sicily. The Carthaginians knew how to bargain. They offered ships in exchange for Sicily. Pyrrhus refused. Carthage then concluded an official alliance with Rome. This was not neutrality. It was a choice. Syracuse, a Greek city and Pyrrhus's closest ally in Sicily, had made its choice even earlier. While the king was fighting the Carthaginians in the west of the island, Syracusan aristocrats were negotiating with Rome. Not because they loved Rome, but because they feared Pyrrhus more. He demanded men, grain, ships, and money. He ruled like a king, not an ally. After his departure for Italy, Syracuse breathed a sigh of relief. By the end of spring 275 BC, Pyrrhus knew for certain there would be no help. None at all. Not from the east, the west, or the north. He stands in Italy with only what he has. About 20,000 infantrymen, several thousand cavalry, 8 war elephants, survivors of Sicily, not yet fully battle-ready after a difficult march. Veterans, good soldiers. But mercenaries live on pay, and the pay has been delayed for the 3rd consecutive month. Tarentum, the wealthiest Greek city in Italy, for whom it all began, found it increasingly difficult to raise funds. 6 years of war had depleted the treasury. Trade was disrupted. Wealthy citizens hid their gold within their walls. The city authorities demanded victory from Pyrrhus, immediate. final. It is at this very moment that the first rumors reach Pyrrhus's camp, that several Greek cities to the south are negotiating with Pyrrhus, not with weapons in hand, just talking, feeling out the terms. Pyrrhus summons his commanders. He spreads a map before them. He points to the Calore Valley, to the hill with the Roman camp, and to the roads leading south. He explains, if these cities defect to Rome, the army will be cut off from its supply bases. A march north is pointless. There are new Roman legions there. Retreating to Tarentum means the end of the campaign and the end of his reputation. Only one option remains: to force Pyrrhus into battle before he finishes the camp, before reinforcements arrive from the north, before the cities to the south open their gates to Roman scouts. The commanders remain silent. They understand. The king is right. And they understand something else, something no one says aloud. Pyrrhus is waiting for exactly this. The commanders are silent. But at the far end of the camp, where the infantry tents end and a special enclosed area begins, there is no silence. There are shouts. The 8 Indian elephants scent the coming war before the men do. The mahouts, called kornaks, work from dawn. The animals are fed and washed, their skin checked for wounds and calluses after the Sicilian march. Each elephant is worth more than 50 mercenaries. Each is worth 500 in battle. At least, that is how it used to be. At Heraclea, in 280 BC, Pyrrhus's elephants decided the outcome. The Roman cavalry had never seen such beasts. Horses reared, threw their riders, and turned to trample their own infantry. Legions that had stood firm all morning turned into a fleeing mob in a single hour. 2,000 Romans lay dead on the banks of the Siris River. The elephants moved through the ranks like living battering rams, methodical and unstoppable. That was 6 years ago. Now, everything has changed. Roman sentries on the hill look down at the elephant enclosure. They look not with the horror the legionaries at Heraclea felt, but with study. In 6 years of war with Pyrrhus, Rome has managed to do what it does best: break a problem into parts and find a solution for each. The first solution: fire. Roman craftsmen in the legionary workshops are building carts, not war chariots, but something simpler and more terrifying. Heavy wooden platforms on wheels, with iron braziers on the sides. In the braziers, pitch, tow, and dry brushwood. The idea is brutal in its simplicity. An elephant is an animal. An animal fears fire. A burning torch thrust under an elephant's nose turns a 2-ton war machine into an uncontrollable force that crushes everything around it, including its own ranks. The second solution: javelins. The velites, Roman light infantry, receive a specific order. At the moment the elephants attack, they are not to retreat as before, but to aim at vulnerable points. Under the tail, where the skin is thinner. Into the eyes, into the space behind the ears, where the bony armor of the skull does not reach. To hit there is to inflict pain. Pain means panic. An elephant's panic, in the midst of its own troops, means disaster for its handlers. The Romans did not invent this tactic. They learned it from Pyrrhus himself. At the Trebia, when Hannibal, a generation later, drove elephants against other Roman legions, they already knew what to do. But now, it is 275 BC, and Rome is learning from its own losses. At Asculum, elephants again routed the Roman center. The consuls of that year compiled detailed reports. Manius Curius read those reports. He read them carefully. In Pyrrhus's camp, the Kornaks finished the morning feeding. The head mahout, a man named Brixius, who came with Pyrrhus from Epirus, walks around the animals, touching their tusks and checking the metal caps. The tusks are iron-bound at the base. This is not decoration, but a weapon. A blow from such a tusk can shatter a wooden shield, along with the man behind it. But Brixius knows something the Roman officers on the hill do not. One of the elephants, a young male taken as a calf in India and not fully trained for combat, has been restless for 3 days. He is not eating. He shakes his head. Brixius requested rest for him, but he was denied. Pyrrhus ordered all 8 to be prepared. The king rides into the enclosure. He looks at the elephants with an expression his officers have learned to recognize. Not admiration, not anxiety, but calculation. He mentally maps out the coming battle. The elephants will go on the flanks, immediately after the first strike of the light infantry. Their task is to break through Curius's cavalry before the phalanx closes with the legions. If successful, the Roman center will be left without cover. Then the sarissas will do the rest. It is a good plan. It worked twice. One of the officers speaks cautiously. The terrain is not like Heraclea. The Calore Valley is flat, but at the foot of the Roman hill are rocky ledges and shallow ravines. An elephant on flat ground is an insurmountable force. An elephant stumbling on a rock under a hail of burning javelins is another matter entirely. Pyrrhus listens. He nods. He says, "The phalanx will clear the path for the elephants. First, the infantry will crush the velites. Then the elephants will advance." The officer no longer objects. In the evening, the cornacs put the animals to sleep. Brixius stands by the young male for a long time, placing his hand on its rough flank. The elephant breathes heavily, its ear flaps slowly. This is not calm. It is exhaustion. At dawn, this exhaustion will become part of the plan. Only no one will ask whose plan it truly is. And on the hill above the valley, Curius orders additional metal to be issued to the blacksmiths. By morning, the carts with braziers must be in the 3rd line. Loaded, ready. Fire against tusks. Discipline against instinct. And somewhere between them, the night forest, through which Pyrrhus has already decided to lead his men. The night forest. This is where Pyrrhus decides to strike. This is not madness, it is geometry. The Roman camp sits on a hill. The approach from below is a slope under javelins, a ditch, a palisade, and 3 lines of legionaries. A frontal assault on such a position is not a battle, it is the slaughter of one's own army. Pyrrhus understands this better than anyone. He has taken fortified cities. He knows the cost of a frontal assault. But there is another way. To the northwest, the hill where Curius stands abuts a dense forest. The slopes there are steeper, the trees thicker. This is why the Romans did not build full fortifications there. Nature seemed the best defense. The logic is sound, almost sound. Pyrrhus watches this strip of forest all day. By evening, he makes his decision. At night, a picked detachment, about 4,000 infantrymen and 5 elephants, moves around the flank. The mission: to pass through the forest, reach the northern slope of the Roman hill before dawn, and strike the least defended section of the camp from an unexpected direction. While the main forces tie down Curius with a frontal attack, the flanking detachment will break through the palisade from the rear. On paper, it was brilliant. In the forest at night, it was another matter. The column departs into the darkness around midnight. The first stages go well. The path the scouts found during the day exists. It is narrow and rocky, but it leads in the right direction. The infantry moves silently, as veterans know how to move, without clanking, without talking, placing their feet with care. Then the path forks. This is the first moment the plan begins to unravel. The scouts who walked here during the day did so without elephants. Elephants change everything. Animals sense darkness differently than humans. They stop when the ground beneath their feet becomes unstable. They do not go where they cannot see. The mahouts quietly urge them on, pull on the reins and whisper in their native tongues. The elephants stand fast. The column freezes. The commander of the detachment, one of Pyrrhus's most experienced officers, makes a decision. The left path seems wider. He takes it. The elephants finally follow. The column moves again. The left path leads to a dead end. After about an hour of walking, the forest becomes denser. The trees close in. Branches lash at faces. The path narrows to the width of one man. An elephant cannot fit. The mahouts begin to force the animals to break through the undergrowth directly. The crack of breaking branches in the night forest can be heard far away. Very far away. At the top of the hill, a Roman sentry hears the crackling. He stops. He listens. He goes to wake the centurion. By this time, Pyrrhus's column has completely lost its bearings. There is no map of the night forest. The stars are hidden by the canopy. The men, who once walked in silence, begin to talk in hushed voices. Otherwise, they will lose each other in the darkness. The rear guard does not know what the vanguard is doing. The vanguard does not know where they are. 4,000 soldiers in a dark forest are not a fighting unit. They are a mob. Pyrrhus made the decision for a night march based on what he saw during the day. The forest as cover, darkness as concealment. But the night forest lives by different laws. Distances double. Slopes become steeper. What seemed passable in daylight becomes an insurmountable obstacle at night. By dawn, the detachment emerges from the forest. They do not emerge onto the northern slope of the Roman hill, but onto the eastern one, 300 stadia off their intended position. The men are exhausted. Several soldiers have sustained injuries on the rocks in the darkness, twisted ankles, bruised knees. One elephant has cut its leg on a sharp rock outcrop and is limping. The formation is broken into fragments, which emerge from the forest at different times. And here, at the edge of the forest, they are being watched. Curius did not sleep. When the sentry reported the crackling in the forest, the consul made a simple calculation. Such noise is made by a large detachment moving in the dark. A large detachment in the dark means a flanking maneuver. He had already moved light infantry to the eastern slope before dawn. The Velites lay down at the edge of the forest. They waited. The first Epirot soldiers emerge from the forest in the morning mist, scattered, out of formation, with weapons carried rather than held at the ready. They still do not realize they have come out in the wrong place. Javelins meet them before they can understand. The forest, which Pyrrhus chose as a weapon, became a trap. Not because Curius was more brilliant, but because a night march through unfamiliar terrain with war elephants is a gamble. And luck did not come. Exhausted, disoriented, and attacked from their first steps, the flanking detachment rolls back toward the forest. The frontal attack, which was supposed to support their blow, has not yet begun. The main forces are waiting for a signal from the flanking detachment. There will be no signal. Dawn finds Pyrrhus's army divided, partially driven from its positions, and, worse than any losses, tired. The night, which was supposed to be a weapon, has taken the last reserves of strength from men who today must stand in the phalanx. And in the misty ravines at the edge of the forest, where the Velites had already dispersed for a new attack, the impenetrable thicket and sheer exhaustion became a noose around the Hellenistic army's neck. In the misty ravines at the edge of the forest, The Velites no longer wait. They hunt. This is not a battle as a phalangite understands it. There are no lines. There is no formation. There is no command to close shields. There is only fog, trees, rocks, and short javelins that fly from the darkness before the hand that threw them can even be seen. Velites are the poorest citizens of Rome, those who cannot afford the panoply of a heavy legionary. A short sword, a few javelins, a small round shield. No armor save for a helmet. Their strength lies not in protection, but in agility. They do not hold positions. They appear, strike, and vanish. In an open field, a Velite facing a phalangite is a dead man. 20-foot sarissas would never let him within range. The heavy infantryman's shields would deflect his javelins. The phalanx formation would shred light infantry if they dared a head-on assault. But this is not an open field. This is a forest. Epirote soldiers filter out from the trees in scattered groups. 5 men, 10. Then a pause, then another 15. Between these groups lie only darkness and undergrowth. Commanders cannot see their men. Men cannot see their commanders. The long, unwieldy sarissas snag on branches and strike tree trunks. Some soldiers drop them and draw short swords. It is a sound decision for the woods, but a catastrophic one for a phalangite. Without his sarissa, he loses his only advantage over a legionary. The Velites strike the first group the moment they emerge at the tree line. 3 javelins, a pause, 2 more, then silence. The Epirotes raise their shields, scanning the shadows for the enemy. Nothing. Then the first Velite appears from the left, between the trees, hurls a javelin at the exposed flank of the outermost soldier, and retreats back into the fog. A second Velite attacks from the right. He too disappears. This is not chaos. This is tactics. The centurion commanding the Velites in this sector had deployed his men in pairs before dawn. Each pair works its own section of the tree line. The first strikes, the second waits, either to deliver the coup de grace or to cover a withdrawal. They are not trying to destroy the enemy. They are trying to prevent him from forming up. And it works. The Epirot officers understand what is happening. They shout orders to rally, to close ranks, to reform. The soldiers hear the voices and move toward them. The groups begin to merge. A formation, albeit ragged and incomplete, begins to take shape at the tree line. Then the Velites change tactics. They stop attacking the rank and file and start targeting the officers. Not because they can discern insignia in the fog, but because an officer is anyone who stands slightly ahead and speaks loudly. 2 javelins into a commander shatter the unit he has just rallied. The men scatter again, searching for someone, anyone, to give an order. One of the Epirot commanders, his name lost to history, makes the only correct decision. He withdraws his men back into the forest. Not in a rout, but in an orderly withdrawal, step by step, shields up. It is difficult. It is humiliating. But it is correct. His unit maintains its cohesion. Most of the others do not. By the time the sun rises high enough for the fog to dissipate, the state of the eastern slope is clear. Several hundred Epirot soldiers lie dead or wounded. The rest have partially retreated into the woods or are huddling in uneven groups at the tree line, unsure of which direction to move. The elephants, intended to strike the flank, stand idle in the forest. No one dares drive them through the brush under a storm of javelins. The flanking maneuver, which was supposed to break the Roman camp from the north, has failed completely. But the failure of the maneuver is not the worst blow for Pyrrhus. Worse is what has happened to the men. A soldier who has spent the night in the forest without sleep, without bearings, and under the constant fear of an attack from the darkness, is a changed man. He is no longer the confident veteran who marched out of camp at midnight. The body has drained its reserves fighting darkness, fatigue, and fear. The survival instinct has already burned through its share of adrenaline. When these men are put into formation for the main battle a few hours later, they will hold their shields and sarissas with the same hands, but inside, they are hollow. Any commander who has led men on night marches knows this. Pyrrhus knows it too. He is no novice. He has led armies through Epirus, Macedon, southern Italy, and Sicily. He knows what a drained soldier signifies. But he has no choice. To delay meant granting Curio time Pyrrhus could ill afford, allowing the southern cities to make their final decision in favor of Rome, and allowing the mercenaries, who have gone unpaid for 3 months, to make their own decisions. He gathers his officers and speaks briefly. The battle is today. Rest as much as time allows before noon. The officers disperse. No one objects. This, too, is a sign. An army in which officers stop objecting is an army that has stopped believing in victory and started thinking about survival. Silence is not consent. It is a weariness deeper than words. And in the forest, where the morning mist is clearing, lie the bodies of Epirate soldiers. The Velites have already withdrawn toward the hill. They have done their job. Now it is the turn of those in heavy armor behind the palisade of the Roman camp, waiting for the gates to open. Exhaustion and fear have broken the psyche of the flanking force faster than any sword, and this fracture is now spreading through Pyrrhus's entire army, quietly, imperceptibly, like a crack in stone before it crumbles. A crack in stone spreads slowly. Then, all at once, it shatters. It is midday in Pyrrhus's camp. Soldiers returned from the night in the forest lie sprawled between the tents. Sleep is impossible. The enemy is too close, and the blacksmiths in the Roman camp on the hill are working too loudly. The hammer blows ring through the valley with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat. Methodical, unhurried. This sound is more terrifying than war trumpets. Trumpets are emotion, a cry, a call to fury. Hammer blows are the calm of men who know they have time. The Epirate veterans lie and listen. They fought at Heraclea, at Asculum, and in Sicily. They know how to read a war with more than just their eyes. And they hear one thing in those blows. Rome is in no rush. The mercenaries gather in groups, speaking in low voices. The Iberians keep to themselves, separate from the Samnites. The Samnites separate from the Lucanians. This is a bad omen. In a healthy army, the ranks mingle, sharing food, playing dice, arguing, and making up. But as an army fractures, each ethnicity retreats into its own. Among the Iberian mercenaries, talk of pay has begun openly. 3 months without pay is not a delay, it is a signal. An experienced mercenary knows that a commander who does not pay either cannot pay or does not intend to. Both options mean the same thing. It is time to look out for oneself. One of the Iberian commanders, referred to in sources simply as the chief of the Western mercenaries, sends a formal request to Pyrrhus's treasurer, in writing. This is a critical detail. An oral request can be ignored, but a written one cannot be dismissed without losing face. The treasurer replies, "After the victory." The Iberian commander reads the reply, folds the letter, and puts it in his pouch. He says nothing more, but his men see his face. By the end of the summer of 275 BC, Pyrrhus's army numbers about 20,000 men. Of these, no more than a third are Epirote citizens, bound to the king by birthright. The rest are mercenaries, allies, and allied tribes. Each has come for his own reasons. None are bound to this war as a Roman legionary is, defending his own soil. This is a fundamental difference, and it is beginning to make itself felt. Among the Greek allies, the Tarentines and the people of Locri, other rumors circulate. They say the Locrians have already sent a secret embassy to Curio. They say Rhegium has long since made a deal. They say that after Pyrrhus's defeat, Tarentum would be left to settle the bill for everything. For 6 years of war, for betraying allies, and for summoning a foreign king to fight a foreign war. Some Tarentine aristocrats left the camp a week ago, on personal business, as their servants explained. Pyrrhus knows this. He cannot help but know. His scouts are active. But knowledge and the ability to act are different things. To execute the Tarentine aristocrats for desertion would mean losing Tarentum entirely. To forgive them would show the rest that desertion goes unpunished. He chooses a third option, to ignore it. This, too, is a sign. A king with options makes decisions. A king with none pretends everything is proceeding as planned. Among the veterans, other conversations take place, quiet ones, held only with those trusted completely. They speak of omens. When leaving the port of Sicily, a ship's heron, a sacred bird, plunged into the sea and drowned. The priest explained it as a bad omen, but not a fatal one. Now that the night march has failed, now that the Velites have cut down the flanking force in the woods, the old soldiers remember the heron. They say, "The luck of Alexander has abandoned this army." This is not superstition in the modern sense. It is ancient military psychology. A soldier who believes the gods are on his side fights differently. He does not calculate the odds. He charges because victory is predetermined. A soldier who believes the gods have turned away begins to calculate. And calculation on the battlefield is more lethal than the blade. Pyrrhus orders a sacrifice. The priests examine the entrails and report the result. The signs are favorable. This is exactly how priests should report to an army going into battle the next day. Every experienced officer understands this. The priests know the officers understand, and together, they understand that it is best not to speak of it aloud. The news of favorable omens drifted through the camp like a faint breeze. It kindled no fire. It offered no warmth. In the evening, Pyrrhus rides through the camp. This is a mandatory ritual before battle, to show himself, to let the men see their king alive, confident, and ready. He is good at this. Straight-backed, calm-eyed, speaking the right words. The soldiers look at him, and some of them look at him as a man, not as a king or a commander, but as a man who has brought them here and is now searching for a way out. Plutarch does not describe this evening in detail, but he preserved one fact. Pyrrhus did not sleep that night. He worked with maps until dawn. This speaks more than any description of mood. A commander confident of tomorrow's victory sleeps before the battle. A commander seeking a way to win against all odds works through the night. In the darkness beyond the camp palisade, there is silence. The Roman camp is not noisy. The lights burn steadily. The sentries stand at their posts. No frantic shouts, no panicked movements. Rome awaited the dawn with the icy composure of men who had already won the war in their minds. And this calm, audible even in the silence, weighed on the Epirot veterans more heavily than any enemy. The dread of Roman resolve was more harrowing than the fear of the blade. A sword can be stopped by a shield, but there is no shield against such inflexibility. Dawn approaches, and with it, Pyrrhus's last chance to remain a victor in history. Dawn arrives cold. The Calora Valley remains shrouded in shadow for an hour after first light. The first to rise are not the commanders, but those who did not sleep. There are many of them, too many for an army that must hold its formation under the assault of legions in a few hours. They rise silently, stretching stiff limbs, looking toward the hill where movement is already visible behind the Roman palisade. They are rising there too. They are preparing too. The difference is in the atmosphere. Behind the Roman palisade, there is a professional silence, the coordinated movement of men doing a familiar job. Legionaries check their gear without fuss. Centurions inspect the ranks. No one shouts unnecessarily. This was an army that lived and died by the clock, with equal stoicism. In Pyrrhus's camp, it is different. Men gather into formation slowly. The Iberians rise reluctantly. Several Samnite warriors argue with a junior officer. He waves them off, and they fall silent. But they are the last to join the line. These are minor things. Individually, they are nothing. Together, they form a picture of an army moving into battle by inertia rather than conviction. Pyrrhus sees this. He rides out before the formation, circling slowly from left to right, looking into their faces. This was no mere ceremony. It was a diagnosis. An experienced commander reads an army in its eyes before it ever reveals itself in battle. Plutarch describes Pyrrhus on the eve of decisive battles as a man of exceptional personal courage. He fought in the front ranks at Heraclea. He personally led the cavalry at Asculum. His soldiers saw their king under fire, and that sight held them better than any words. Today, he will again don his armor and stand where the danger is greatest, not because he does not understand the risk, but because he knows that without his lead, they would not move. He stops before the center of the formation and speaks. Sources have not preserved his exact words, but the logic of the situation allows us to reconstruct them. He spoke of Heraclea, how victory seemed impossible there too. He spoke of Rome's mortality. They had already proven it twice. He spoke of Tarentum, of the Greeks of Italy, and of the cause that brought them here. The formation listened, not with fire, but with attention, which was already an improvement over the apathy of an hour before. The veterans listened to the king as one listens to a man trusted personally, even when faith in the cause has withered. It is a subtle difference, but it held the line. When Pyrrhus falls silent, the front ranks strike their shields with the butts of their spears. The sound thundered through the valley. Then others picked it up, not deafeningly, but enough. On the hill behind the palisade, Manius Curius hears the sound. The consul stands at the camp gates, flanked by 2 senior legates and his military tribunes. Curius has been in armor since the early hours. This, too, is a signal to his men. The commander is ready. The wait will not be long. He gives no long speeches. It is not his style, nor the style of the moment. The legionaries of Rome do not need to be inspired by words. Their inspiration lives in the system, in discipline, and in the fact that every man knows his place and his duty to the last detail. Curius gives short, sharp orders. The first line is to hold its position until commanded. The velites are to advance immediately and target the elephants with javelins and fire, then retreat behind the third line. The triarii are to remain in reserve. The cavalry will cover the flanks, avoid pursuit, and maintain formation. One order is given separately and specifically. Take no prisoners if the line breaks. Pursue them until they are utterly scattered. This is not cruelty for its own sake. It is calculation. An army that is defeated but not destroyed returns. Pyrrhus had returned before, from Macedon, from Sicily. Curius has no intention of giving him another chance. The sun rises over the eastern edge of the valley. The shadow from the hill begins to recede. The dew on the grass glistens, and will continue to do so until it is trampled into the earth by thousands of feet. In the ranks of the Epirot veterans, there is silence. That peculiar silence that exists only before a battle. It is not peace, but tension compressed to the density of stone. Men breathe slower than usual. Hands grip hilts. Gazes are fixed forward, at the hill, the palisade, and the figures behind it. Somewhere in the third rank of the phalanx stands a soldier. History does not know his name. He came with Pyrrhus from Epirus. He fought at Heraclea and Asculum. He spent the winter in Sicily. He has seen victories, and he has seen victories that bled the army dry, but changed nothing. He stands in formation. He holds his sarissa. He waits. It is all he can do. The gates of the Roman camp begin to open. Slowly, without ceremony, the leaves part, and the first ranks of velites emerge. Light and fast, they scatter down the slope toward the valley. Behind them, in the gateway, something heavy begins to move. Metallic. Uniform. The legions march onto the field. The clash of gladii against shield rims thundered through the valley in a single beat, as if the earth itself had taken a step. Pyrrhus exhales. He raises his hand. The trumpeters take their breath. The last chance to remain a victor begins here. Pyrrhus's trumpets answer the Roman call a second later. The sound of two armies clashes over the valley and echoes across the hills. The first to move are not the veterans. Pyrrhus throws his light mercenaries forward, the Iberians and Lucanians. This was a calculated move, not a sacrifice, or rather, a sacrifice disguised as calculation. Their task is not to win, but to absorb the first blow of the velites, to wear down the front lines of the legions, and to draw out as many javelins as possible before the phalanx engages. They know this. They go anyway. The Iberians run lightly, armed with short swords and small shields. The Lucanians are heavier, bearing spears. Between the two armies lies a stade and a half of open field. A distance a man runs quickly. Too quickly to think, slowly enough to be afraid. The velites meet them halfway. The first volley of javelins is not aimed. It is a dense rain into the mass. Several Iberians fall. The rest raise their shields and keep running. The second volley is closer, more precise. A Lucanian spearman in the front rank takes a javelin to the thigh. He falls and is trampled by his own men. The two light infantry forces collide in the center of the field. This was no battle of lines. It was a brawl. Short blows, quick retreats. The Iberian sword is deadly in close quarters, short, wide, designed to chop and thrust. The Roman javelin is effective at range, but when the distance vanishes, both sides switch to the blade. Curio watches the clash from the heights. He waits. He is not waiting for the outcome of the light infantry's skirmish. Its result is of no interest to him. He is waiting for the elephants. Pyrrhus keeps the elephants in the second line. 8 beasts with mahouts astride their necks stand behind the ranks of heavy infantry. They are visible from afar, looming dark silhouettes above the heads of the men. They are audible, a low shuffling, heavy breathing, and the occasional short trumpet blast. Brixius sits upon the neck of the lead bull. He looks ahead. His hands grip the rope reins. His legs are braced behind the animal's ears. The elephant is calm. This one is experienced, battle-hardened, and reliable. Nearby is a young bull, the one that has not eaten for 3 days. His mahout is a youth, taken on campaign to replace an older driver killed in Sicily. He handles elephants well in peacetime, but today is his first battle. Pyrrhus gives the order. The elephants advance. The phalanx parts its ranks, letting the animals through. The elephants move into the open field. The ground feels their tread before the men see their movement. The velites on both sides instinctively fall back. And then, Curio gives the command. From the third line of the legions, wagons roll out. Heavy wooden platforms on wheels that the blacksmith spent 3 days building. The braziers are already burning. Pitch-soaked torches, lashed to long poles, are thrust forward. The velites received their orders yesterday. Upon the appearance of the elephants, fall back and let the wagons pass. They withdraw. The wagons roll toward the elephants. Brixius's bull sees the fire. It stops. Its ears flare out, a sign of alarm. Brixius presses with his legs, urging with his voice. The elephant takes a step forward. Another. It stops again. Simultaneously, javelins. The velites do not aim for the armor, nor for the forehead. They aim under the tails, at the ears, into the space behind the hind legs where the skin is thin and nerve endings are plentiful. It hurts. It hurts a lot. The lead bull turns. Brixius reacts instantly, shouting, pressing with his legs, pulling the reins. A second of struggle between man and beast. The elephant halts. It does not turn completely. It stands sideways, shaking its head. The young bull turns completely. His mahout is too slow, or perhaps he simply does not know how to respond. A javelin strikes the young elephant under its right ear, just as it completes a 180-degree turn. The pain is sharp and sudden. The elephant lets out a trumpeting cry, not a war cry, but an animal cry of fear and pain, and it bolts backward. 2 tons of living terror at full speed crash into the left flank of their own formation. The elephant does not slow down as it runs. It weighs what it weighs. It is not stopped by a human body, a shield, or a spear. Several infantrymen on the left flank, Epirote citizens, the best soldiers in the army, simply disappear under the animal's feet. The rest scatter. The left flank's formation, which had held since morning, collapses in seconds. Not because the Romans attacked, but because their own elephant tore through it like a battering ram through a wooden door. Panic spreads faster than orders. The men on the left flank see their neighbors running. They do not know why. They see the elephant running, its trunk raised, blood under its ear. Instinct takes over before discipline can kick in. The left flank breaks. Pyrrhus sees this. He turns his horse, shouts orders, sends an aide to the left flank with a command to restore the line. The aide gallops off. He will not make it. He will be knocked down by the stream of fleeing men before he reaches his objective. Brixius holds his elephant. 2 other mahouts hold theirs. 5 elephants out of 8 are still on the field. But the moment for the attack is lost. The formation is broken. The fire wagons are approaching. The velites advance again. Now they are not aiming at the animals. They are striking at the newly formed gaps in the left flank, where men had just stood, and where no one is now rushing to return. Curio sees this from the hill. This is exactly what he was waiting for. Not the elephants' victory, nor their rout. He was waiting for the moment a gap appeared in Pyrrhus's line. Any gap, for any reason. He raises his hand. The camp gates open for the second time. Now the triarii emerge. Veterans, heavy infantry, the reserve. They descend the slope of the hill at an even pace. No running, no shouting. Straight into the left flank of Pyrrhus's army, where the dust from the passing elephant has not yet settled. The animal panic in the ranks of the Macedonian Phalanx did what 6 years of war could not. It opened the door, and Rome walks through it. The triarii enter the breach silently. without a shout, without accelerating. The steady tread of heavy infantry, so that the ground echoes with every sandal strike. They march into the dust, into the chaos, into the place where a formation had been, and where now only fleeing backs and abandoned sarissas remain. The first triarius enters the breach and turns right. The second, left. They do not push forward. They widen the gap from within, like wedges in a split stone. This is not improvisation. This is what they were trained for. Pyrrhus sees this from the center of the field. He is no longer commanding a battle. He is managing a disaster, which is fundamentally different. Commanding a battle means directing force. Managing a disaster means slowing down disintegration. This can be done for a while. He throws his reserve unit into the breach, the Epirote Hetyroi, his personal cavalry. They gallop along the left flank, hitting the triarii from the side. For a few seconds, a real melee. Horses trample infantrymen. Triarii thrust spears under the horses' bellies. Horses fall, riders fall with them. The expansion of the breach slows, briefly, because at the same time, the center. While the Hetyroi are plugging the left flank, Curio throws the main legionary forces directly into the center of the phalanx. There are Pyrrhus's best soldiers.
There are the sarissas, the shields, the formation that held all morning. There is what this army was built for.
A sarissa in the open field means death. 6 meters of iron point, presented in 5 ranks. A legionary with a gladius cannot get closer than 4 meters. He will be killed before he can. This is the math Rome learned at Heraclea. But the phalanx only works when it holds its formation. The left flank is already collapsing. The right is fending off cavalry. The center holds, but it looks in both directions of its line and sees emptiness. The rear ranks begin to look around. This is the first sign. When a soldier in formation looks around, he is thinking about retreat. Curio knew this in advance. That is why the strike at the center is not an attempt to break the phalanx head-on. It is pressure. While the phalanx is looking at the legionaries in front, it does not see the maniples flanking it. A maniple is not a phalanx. It is smaller, more mobile, and turns faster.
Where the phalanx requires level ground and a steady formation, the maniple operates in broken terrain, in dust, and in chaos. This is precisely what Rome built its system for. The left flank of the phalanx is already open. The maniples flow into it like water into a crack. Pyrrhus understands what is happening. He gallops along the line, shouting at commanders to hold the formation, to keep the sarissas horizontal, and not to let the legionaries under the points. They hear him. Those who can still obey, do. The center holds for 20 minutes, maybe 30. Then it cracks. Not all at once. First, one section, where a maniple found a gap between units and squeezed inside. Where 2 units stand side by side, there is always a millimeter of space between shields. A legionary with a short gladius, not a long sarissa, squeezes into that millimeter. He finds himself inside the formation. Where the sarissa is useless, too long to wield in close quarters, there his weapon works. Their weapons do not.
The phalanx begins to disintegrate from within. Pyrrhus gallops to the breakthrough point, personally. His bodyguards and a few officers are with him. He plunges into the thick of the fight. This is not recklessness. It is the last resort. If the soldiers see their king in the front ranks, some of them will stay. As long as he stands, the line holds. Plutarch reports that Pyrrhus took several blows in this battle. None were fatal. His armor and luck protected him. His horse was wounded. He mounted another. He survived. His army did not. The right flank collapses next. The Iberian mercenaries held out the longest there. They fought well, as always. But without flank support, without elephants, and without a cohesive line, they are simply a group of soldiers in the middle of the field, surrounded by maniples on all sides. The Iberian commander, the one who wrote a letter to the quartermaster about his pay 3 days ago, makes a decision. He lowers his sword.
This is not cowardice.
It is the calculation of an experienced mercenary. The war is lost. Dying for a lost war without pay is foolishness. To live is to find the next employer. Several hundred Iberians lay down their arms. The rest of the army sees this, and what had held the men back for the last half hour, discipline, fear of punishment, Pyrrhus's personal example, releases all at once. The rout does not start from the edges. It starts everywhere simultaneously. Men throw down their sarissas, long, hindering their escape. They throw down their large shields, heavy, slowing their pace. They run toward the camp. The camp means walls, palisades, some kind of defense. But the camp is no longer a defense. Curio had sent a separate detachment around the flank early in the breakthrough. While the phalanx was disintegrating on the field, this detachment circled around the hillside and emerged behind the camp. There was minimal security. Baggage servants, the wounded, a few dozen soldiers. They do not hold.
The legionaries smash through the wooden gates.
They enter. The first with swords. The rest follow. The camp, which Pyrrhus had spent days building, falls to Rome in minutes. The royal tents stand in the center. There is the treasury, maps, personal belongings, and correspondence. There is the remnant of what was the marching headquarters of a Hellenistic king who planned to change the map of the Mediterranean. The legionaries enter the tents. The elephants that were not killed in battle mill about the field without mahouts. Most of the drivers are dead or have fled. Brixius holds on to his animal until the last moment, trying to lead it out of the encirclement. Spearmen surround him. He raises his hands. 7 elephants are captured alive. The 8th is killed by spears at the northern edge of the field. Pyrrhus emerges from the battle with a handful of bodyguards, alive, in shattered armor, without an army. He looks back. The field behind him is no longer a battlefield.
It is the place where the Hellenistic war machine he had built for 6 years had just ceased to exist. Dust, abandoned weapons, bodies. Among the bodies are long sarissas, stuck in the ground or simply lying there. Their points glint in the midday sun. Macedonia's tactical legacy of centuries lies in the dust near Beneventum. Not because it was weak, but because it was brought into a foreign war too far from home, and could neither be fed nor reinforced, nor have its losses replaced. Pyrrhus turns his horse north, toward Tarentum. Behind him, Manius Curio enters the captured camp. Manius Curio enters the camp without fanfare. He walks on foot. This is noticed. A consul who captured an enemy camp could ride in, for show, for the soldiers, for history. Curio walks on foot among his legionaries and looks at what remains of the Epirote headquarters. Tents, overturned chests, scattered scrolls. Someone's expensive map on calfskin, torn, with a sandal print in the middle. He stops at the royal tent. He enters alone. What he saw there, the sources do not say. Plutarch describes the consul as a man unimpressed by plunder. When the Samnites tried to bribe him with gold, he replied that he preferred to dine from a wooden bowl, commanding those who possessed gold. Beautiful words, and, by all accounts, true. He emerges from the tent. He gives the order to account for the prisoners and the elephants. 7 live elephants stand in a pen under guard. Brixius sits on the ground next to his animal, His hands are bound behind his back, but the mahouts are not dispersed. Elephants without mahouts are dangerous. Everyone understands this. In Rome, these animals will be seen for the first time in the city's history. This will become the main image of the triumph. Not the gold, not the prisoners, not the captured weapons. 7 war elephants, marching down the sacred way toward the capital. Rome, which defeated the invincible, now leads them alive through its own streets. This is not a military trophy. It is a political statement, written in a language understood by the entire Mediterranean. While Curio counts the spoils, Pyrrhus gallops toward Tarentum. He has a few hundred bodyguards with him. Of the 20,000 he marched out with into the Calore Valley that morning, less than a third will reach Tarentum. The rest are dead, wounded, captured, or simply scattered along the roads of southern Italy, having decided they had found enough reasons not to continue this war. The Iberian mercenaries laid down their arms on the field. The Lucanians melted into the landscape. They know these hills better than any Epirate. The Samnites are going home. Not to Rome, not to Pyrrhus, just home. The alliance that seemed strong before dawn ceased to exist by noon. Pyrrhus spends several weeks in Tarentum. These are difficult weeks. The Tarentine aristocrats receive him, politely, with ceremony, with the right words about loyalty and alliance. Behind closed doors, they talk with Roman envoys. The terms of Tarentum's surrender are discussed concurrently with dinners honoring the King of Epirus. Pyrrhus senses this. Perhaps he knows it for sure. He requests new troops from the Tarentine Council. The council convenes a meeting. The meeting lasts 3 days. The result, a sympathetic refusal with a promise to reconsider the matter later when the situation clarifies. The situation by this point is extremely clear. No one simply wants to say it out loud. Pyrrhus sails for Epirus in 274 BC. He takes with him what little remains of his army. He leaves a garrison in Tarentum, a few thousand soldiers under the command of Milo. This is a gesture, a way of saying, I will return. I am not abandoning my allies. Milo will surrender Tarentum to Rome 2 years later, without a fight. In the Hellenistic palaces of the East, the news of the defeat at Beneventum is met without surprise. Antigonus Gonatus, who 18 months earlier had put aside Pyrrhus's letter and ordered wine to be served, now receives a report from his envoy from southern Italy. He reads it, nods. Not a single ship sails for the shores of Italy. Not one. Ptolemy II in Alexandria records the news in diplomatic dispatches and moves on to the next item. Antiochus in the east is busy with his own war. Carthage, which had concluded a treaty with Rome even during the height of Pyrrhus's Sicilian campaign, observes the events with unconcealed satisfaction. Magna Graecia, the Greek colonies of southern Italy, which had called for Pyrrhus, begged for protection, and welcomed him with flowers, opens its gates to the Roman legions one by one. Croton, Locri, Rhegium. Not because they love Rome, but because Pyrrhus is no longer there, and Rome is here, 2 marches away. This takes several years, but the end is predetermined the day Pyrrhus turns his horse toward Tarentum. In 272 BC, while Rome is besieging Tarentum, Pyrrhus dies in street fighting in Argos. Not in a great battle, not in a battle worthy of his reputation. According to Plutarch, an old woman on a rooftop threw a roof tile at him. The blow knocked him unconscious. A soldier of the enemy finished off the king lying on the ground. Thus ends the man whom Hannibal considered the greatest general of antiquity. But the defeat at Beneventum is not just the end of one king, it is the end of an idea. The idea was this: the Hellenistic war machine is invincible.
The Macedonian Phalanx, war elephants, professional mercenaries. There is no answer to this. Alexander proved it, conquering half the world in 10 years. Pyrrhus was the best heir to this system of all living men. Rome found the answer. Not a brilliant tactical move, not a secret weapon, not one great general. Rome found a system that did not depend on one man. A legion without Curio remained a legion.
Pyrrhus's army, without Pyrrhus, ceased to exist.
The maniple worked in forests, in mountains, and in broken terrain, where the phalanx demanded level ground. Rome lost battles and returned with new legions. Pyrrhus won battles and returned with a smaller army. This is not tactics. It is demographics, logistics, and the political structure of a state that knew how to turn defeats into experience and experience into victories. Curio returned to Rome and celebrated a triumph. 7 elephants marched down the sacred way. The crowd watched. Then they dispersed to their homes. Life went on. On the banks of the Calore, an unnamed field remained. Grass grew over the abandoned sarissas in a single summer. The wind carried away the ashes of the burned tents. The river flowed as it had before the battle, and as it flowed after. History does not preserve the memory of the losers longer than necessary. It remembers the result. The result was simple. After Beneventum, no Hellenistic army entered Italy. Magna Graecia became a Roman province. The Mediterranean began its path to a single empire, one whose center would not be Alexandria, not Antioch, not Pella. Rome. No tactical skill can save an army that lacks the resources for the next battle. Pyrrhus knew this better than anyone. He spoke of it after Asculum. He wrote about it to allies who did not respond. He saw his army dwindle with each victory and could not stop this process, because there was only one way to stop it: not to start this war at all. But he started it. And here is the question that Beneventum leaves open, not for historians, but for anyone making decisions under impossible choices. When allies are silent, resources run out, and the army holds together only by the commander's personal authority, what is more correct? To continue, risking the destruction of the last remnants, or to retreat, betraying those who begged for protection and received it for 6 years, no more? Pyrrhus chose to continue, to the very end. Magna Graecia paid for this choice with its freedom.